To all of you. On behalf of Auditing and Assurance Standard Board of Institute of Chartered Accountant of India, I welcome you all in today's 126th CP program organized by AASB of ICI. As we all are aware, that topic is very important. Today's topic, that is the professional skepticism as well as the audit expectation gap. And this topic is very relevant in today's era. And in order to tackle these two interrelated topics, we are having with us a very learned speaker from Rohtak, C. Shiva Goyalji. So on behalf of AASB of ICI, I extend my warm welcome to you, Shivaji, on this Zoom platform, as well as the webinar organized by AASB of ICI. Welcome to you, Shivaji. Namaste.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Namaste.
Due to some technical issues as well as some meetings, Honorable Chairman and Honorable Vice Chairman, AASB both are not available to join the webinar right now. Maybe after some time, Chairman Sir will join. As well as the Honorable Chairman Chandigarh branch sir is also busy in some of the meeting. So we are having with us Honorable Vice Chairman of the Chandigarh branch, C. Abhishek Chauhan ji. I welcome to you on behalf of AASB of ICI. Welcome to you, Abhishek ji, on behalf of AASB of ICI. So in order to start formally the webinar, I request Honorable Vice Chairman of Chandigarh branch of NIRC of ICI, C. Abhishek Chauhan ji, to please start the proceedings of this webinar. Over to you, Abhishek ji, please.
Thank you so much, sir. First of all, I would like to welcome you all the participants over here, and thank you so much, sir, for giving me the opportunity to start the webinar. The topic, as you already said, that this is a very important topic at these scenarios, which is known as professional skepticism, most important thing for the chartered accountants, and secondly, the audit expectations gap. So for this, we have with us CA Shiva Goyalji, proprietor at Shiva Goyal and Company. Sir is a fellow chartered accountant by profession, a practicing chartered accountant at Rohtak, right? And he has deliberated various sessions on various topics, which includes the auditing standards, GST refunds, unconventional professional opportunities for chartered accountants at various respected forums, tax bar associations of different states, and at various branches at ICAI. So we expect from sir for the best out of his knowledge. He can deliberate to the members of ICI, and obviously sharing the knowledge is the best thing that a person can give to any other person. If I add some few lines in this sir's profile also, Shiva Goyal's profile sir also, he has co-authored a handbook on GST impacts on real estate sector also, right? And received an Young Entrepreneur Award 2022 from Indian Achievers Forum, and recently awarded as the best GST and customs consultant for the year by Start International MSME Forum. So I would welcome you, sir, Shiva Goyal sir, and now I would request you to please enlighten us with the knowledge on this particular topic, professional skepticism and audit expectations gap. Over to you, sir.
Thank you so much, Abhishek ji. Thank you so much, ASB Chairman sir, Vice Chairman, for giving me an opportunity to share my little learnings on the subjective topic, which is indeed very important topic, professional skepticism and the audit expectation gap. So the topic chosen is very important in today's era, because it is not a particular standard. In fact, I would say the topic has been a very general kind of topic, but at the same time it plays a very important role, considering the lot of orders being issued by the regulators like NAFRA, and times and again they have mentioned this important thing, that auditors are lacking the professional skepticism. So what is that professional skepticism? Why the auditors are being charged with certain allegations and the gross negligences by the NAFRA? What is that we are missing basically? Why there is a gap between what is expected from us and what are we actually delivering? So audit expectation gap. So to deal with these two prominent areas today, in the topics today, I would right away present my screen and share my learnings and insights on this important topics today, the professional skepticism and the audit expectation gap. So I hope my screen is visible to everyone. Is my screen visible, sir?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Thanks for confirming. So we would first study professional skepticism, then we would move to the audit expectation gap. So categorically, we'll start with the audit professional skepticism. What is professional skepticism? Why it is important for the auditors? Which standard of on auditing talks about the professional skepticism? How to approach professional skepticism in the professional and the practical life? How to maintain a professional judgment? Uh, how professional skepticism is related with the fraud procedures and the auditor's responsibility relating to the fraud for the financial statement, material misstatement in the financial statement, SA 240. And further documentation also talks about somewhere that you have to keep proper documentation while you exercise professional skepticism, and the application of the skepticism is the judgment. And not only you put it into the action, but you also depict the working papers that as a proof. You keep it as an evidence, as a proof that you have maintained proper documentation, so that you can demonstrate to NAFRA that yes, we have maintained proper professional skepticism. We have opted for the alternatives of the audit procedures. We have taken written confirmation. We have done everything to form our opinion that financial statement given to and fair, whatever the standard on auditing 700 series is talking about on reporting. And then we make a opinion on the audit financial statements, and as per the SS700 series. And then we can show to the NAFRA basically that yes, as an auditor, it was my responsibility to be alert to the situations and conditions, and this is the proof of that. So we'll study that also, and what is the professional skepticism and auditing gap interlinking thereof, and going forward, what is the outcome and the challenges, how can we solve that. We'll discuss each and everything in the today's webinar. So the word skepticism, as we all know, is to seek information by questioning. We are an auditor, we keep on asking the questions on different set of assertions about understanding the entity, its business model. We should have a questioning mind. Always an auditor is expected to be questioning the assertions and the calculations, the estimates, the going concern assumptions by the management, the fair values taken by the maybe the experts, or maybe some of the valuations by the actuaries, which have been used in arriving at a certain figure, which is used in the income and statement account of the entity for which we are auditing. So basically, professional skepticism is about the seeking information, being alert to the conditions, being questioning always about the things that poke around the audit. So it's basically an attitude and rather a proper standard on auditing, but it's something that it comes through the experience. It's not something that professional skepticism comes overnight. No, it comes through skill, it comes through experience, it comes through technical knowledge, it comes through more and more we are experiencing the certain contradictions in the evidences. Evidences are not corroborating in essentia. So we need to have a question, but this statement is speaking this, why this statement is speaking this. We need to be alert to these contradictory evidences if we obtain that way. So again, questioning to clear the doubts is something the professional skepticism that talks about. Auditors in many jurisdictions were criticized for not applying sufficient professional skepticism at that time, particularly in the audit of fair values, related party transactions, and the going concern assessments. And lack of professional skepticism has become a major complaint of the regulator. And the proof of proving, the burden of proof. And many a times it falls on the auditor. It is the auditor to explain that he has maintained professional skepticism and given the opinion. So we not only be skeptical at one point of time, but also document all the things at the same time. You can't say that verbally to NAFRA that I maintain professional skepticism at that time while I was auditing. No, you have to give the proofs to the NAFRA. So why regulators are complaining from the auditors that they lack professional judgment and skepticism? I will show you one of the case study or the real order of the NAFRA, which is particularly reflecting that NAFRA is pointed out in that particular order that auditors lack professional skepticism and the judgment. So I'm just opening one PDF, and I will show that why this is of utmost importance. So you see, this is the NAFRA's order dated 25th April 2023. I think all can see it. And in this particular summary portion, it is one of the subsidiary companies of the Coffee Day Enterprises Limited Group. And NAFRA's investigation revealed that this, Masur Amalgamated Coffee Estate Limited for the financial year 1920 failed to meet the relevant requirements of the standard on auditing in the number of significant aspects and demonstrated serious lack of competence. So you read this line and you would come to know that why professional skepticism is utmost important. The EP, failed to exercise professional judgment and skepticism during audit of fraudulent borrowings of 4438.37 crores from bank and related parties, and its use for diversion fraudulently of rupees approximately 4100 crore rupees to the personal account of promoters, their relatives, and entities controlled and owned by the promoters and the related parties. So you see, the NAFRA has specifically and categorically has mentioned that the engagement partner, who was an auditor, failed to exercise the professional skepticism during audit of related party transactions involving an accounting fraud by issue of checks without adequate bank balances. And these checks were cleared in the subsequent year 1920 by evergreening of loans through structured circular transaction of funds through its related parties. And auditor has failed to perform sufficient and appropriate procedure during audit of cash flow statement, which had material misstatement of 1938 crores, and EP failed to evaluate corporate guarantees which was taken by the company in the favor of the wife of one of the related party group. So you see that NAFRA has categorically again and again mentioned that EP failed to exercise professional judgment and skepticism during audit of fraudulent borrowing. So you go through the whole report. It's very interesting, as well as it will work as an experience for all of us. We all must read these practical case studies. See, concepts I'm going to cover in the next 1 hour, 1.5 hours. But the practically how auditor failed to maintain the professional skepticism is being told by this particular NAFRA's order, which again and again in subsequent paras has detailed that auditor failed to maintain judgment on this, auditor has failed to discharge responsibility on this, auditor failed to maintain professional skepticism on this. So why this is saying so? We need to be very conscious about that. And what is the penalty? You see, monetary penalty of 10 lakh, and again the debarment of for the period of 10 years from appointed as an auditor has actually been ordered by the NAFRA. The reason for showing this particular order is not to bring a fear in the minds of members. Not at all. The only purpose of showing this NAFRA order and relating that NAFRA is also categorically saying that professional skepticism has not been maintained in the particular audit is the main purpose, that to show that why the regulators are again and again saying us that we are not maintaining professional skepticism. So in specifically going concern assessment and related party transactions and fair value assessment, we need to be little more diligent, and we need to be little more conscious about the this particular procedures by the auditors per se. So you see here that why professional skepticism is so important to the auditors, and you just read this. That auditing function is a dynamic one, and expectation of auditors is going beyond the tick and tie, especially when seeing at auditors independent objective. See, auditors will have a practical difficulty, sir, if we check each and every transaction so in a detailed manner, then it impacts the timelines of the audit, because simultaneously we have certain more audit assignments than what auditor can say is to that we have number of assignments, so it's very difficult that we check all the things in very detail, and we check of course on a sample basis. But professional skepticism says that you have to maintain an appropriate level of skepticism, which enhances the chances that auditor will understand the business properly, any nuisance that make your company different from the others, or this will enable the auditor to provide insights and value added services and auditor. So auditor is not expected to check each and everything 100%. How can it be checked? Not at all possible. If it's a, let's say, any mega mart, for example, big bazaar, thousands of transactions are happening every day, and in a year crores of transactions happening. So auditor is not expected to check each and every transaction. Of course, we have certain inherent limitations of the audit, but professional skepticism says that auditor should be diligent, should be alert, should have questioning mind in case it finds that there are certain contradictory evidences. Auditor should maintain appropriate level of skepticism while checking the borrowings. Like, let's say the company has availed a CC limit of 4,000 crore rupees, and you fail to take any account statement of the CC limit. You only check the closing balance and you say that is okay. See, only closing balance reconciliation with the books of account is not going to serve. At that point of time, you will be charged with that you lack professional skepticism. But other things could have been checked in the borrowings thing is you can check that whether interest is being timely made, whether churning in the CC account is happening properly or not, whether how where the you can check the debits where the funds is being diverted. If the so many transactions are happening to the related party account, then you must perform additional procedures. You must extend your audit procedures in case you find these these signs, and you find a smell that something is not okay in the working capital limits. Perhaps we all know that working capital limit is for the business working facilities, so as to purchase the raw material inventory. It is primarily on the stock and debtors. So are these things in rotation? Are we paying the creditors in time? Are we purchasing the inventory? What are the inventory levels per se? So all these things should be checked. Due diligence should be given in that particular scenario, and professional skepticism in that way should be maintained by the auditor. Asset 200 also talks about the overall objectives of the independent auditor and conduct of audit in accordance with the standard of auditor. And the standard at one of the para says that that auditor exercise professional judgment and maintain professional skepticism. Important point is throughout the planning and performance of the audit. See, audit professional skepticism is not maintained only at the level of planning, when you are seeing, when you're checking the internal control, when you're planning that how much sampling is to be done, not only at that point of time, but also during, doing the substantive procedures, actual checking, vouching and verification, fixed asset checking, loan checking, loans and advances checking, capital work in progress check. While performing actual procedures, you will get to know that this thing was saying this thing is not linked with this, and the evidences are very contradicting. For example, the if we ask from the, let's say, management that how much is the data cycle, if, let's say, management says it to be 90 days, and we are finding that a sale, particularly sale is made for example on 1st of October, and it is not getting realized even till 31st January. Even after 4 months, even after getting overdue. Why the data are not getting recovered? It's a kind of question that should come to the auditor's mind, and he should perform additional procedure. He should ask further questions from the senior persons, from the CFO. If responses are not satisfactory, then we should ask from the board of directors, and from the sales team, then to the CFO, TCWG. We should maintain a hierarchy and organizational structure, but nevertheless, we should be skeptical about that. In case the management is saying something that 90 days is a cycle, but actually we are not getting the realization in 90 days, or it is even eventually it is not realizing in even 180 days, then why provisioning for the bad debt is not done by the company? It should be there. So on each and every assertion, there are no specific rules written in black and white that in this particular assertion you will access this, or in that particular transaction you will access this. This is a set of skill, expertise, experience, technical skills, judgment of the auditor, materiality level set by the auditor. All these things together, are exercised by the auditor as a part of professional skepticism. And when it is applied in practical, that becomes the professional judgment. So it says that an attitude that includes a questioning mind, being alert to conditions due to the error or fraud, and a critical assessment of the audit evidence. Significantly, what happens is, why SS 570 going concern was revised, because auditors sometimes failed to assess the going concern assumption of the management. If orders are not coming in time, if there are a lot of contingent liabilities, if company is losing the cases, and there can be a certain liability which is very, very vast amount. So all these things can question the going concern of the entity. Amount may be significant, may be insignificant. That depends upon case to case. But nevertheless, as an auditor, we are supposed to maintain the professional skepticism, being alert to the conditions that may indicate the possible misstatement due to the error or fraud, or the critical assessment of the audit evidence. And auditor shall, SA 200 specifically says auditor shall plan and perform an audit with professional skepticism, recognizing that circumstances may exist. See, when we start the audit, we don't start the audit with an mindset that the entity have done a fraud or something, there is a material misstatement. We don't start the audit with this mindset. But auditor, while planning, while performing, if auditor finds such circumstances that exist, that forces the auditor to cause that financial statement may be material misstated, So at that point of time, auditor should be extra conscious and do extended procedures as specified by the SA 240, auditor's responsibility relating to the fraud of the financial state. So, and again and again, I'm saying an attitude that includes a questioning mind, and that has to be maintained throughout the audit. So, audit evidences that contradicts the other audit evidences obtained. For example, the of the creditors booked and external confirmation obtained from the creditors are not matching. For example, the information that brings into question the reliability of the document and the responses to the inquiries to be used. So, for example, the loans and advances. Company has given certain loans and advances to the suppliers, but they are not being squared off during the year. The loans and advances are starting from opening and even showing at a closing balance. So the professional skepticism in this particular case is to see that why the advances made to the suppliers, why the goods were not delivered within the year, why the invoice was not raised, why the material is not moving into the entity. Is this maybe the case that company has given loans and advances to the related parties and shown under the category of loans and advances to the basically to the related parties per se? Just give me a minute. So specifically, we seek that conditions. We need to check the conditions that may indicate possible fraud, circumstances that suggest the need for the audit procedure, in addition to those required by the standard of auditing. All these things are required to maintain the professional skepticism. So, one of the query, yes, to be very true that that NAFRA order is under the appeal, under the adjudication. I'm giving a clear disclaimer that I have just shown it for the reference purposes. We know that we as an auditor have maintained professional skepticism, and the order is even under the appeal. So I'm giving a disclaimer that that was just for the reference, and we will go by the concepts only. So now the question arises that how to maintain the professional skepticism. So basically, we need to check, this particular thing, that we should critically assess the audit evidences. We should question the contradictory, audit evidences obtained. We should check the reliability of the documents or the confirmations being obtained. Then responses to the inquiries and the other information obtained from the management and those charged with governance has to be clearly documented. At the same time, we must inquire in case we're not getting proper response from the lower team members. We should surely escalate the matter. We should obtain proper MRLs wherever it is required, in whatsoever assertion it is required. We should consider the sufficient and appropriateness of the audit evidences obtained in the light of the circumstances. So in one of the case, while doing the audit, what we found actually is company had a SOP that company will maintain documentation for each and every, let's say, loan taken, unsecured loans taken, or any loan taken from the director or any related party. So in one of the transaction of a very material amount, what was happening is that in that material amount, company had no agreement in place, whereas SOP had defined that company would have proper documentations, agreement, acceptance, and the correspondence between the borrower and the company. But in one of the material transaction, what we found is there was a single document that was on record. So in that particular case, we confirmed on that why, as per the SOP, that in this particular transaction or the loan taken, why there is no proper agreement and the correspondences as in the similar cases. So you need to be alert. We maintained professional skepticism in that. Later on, we escalated to the TCWG, and the responses were obtained from the directors, and then the documentation part was sufficiently done later on by the TCWG and the directors and the management later on. So we must doubt the information. We must ask the questions that if in 4 cases this is done, then in one of the case, why this particular thing is not done. We must doubt the information. Auditor should may accept the records and document as genuine unless we have reasons to believe the contrary. Again, the same day, unless you find any contradictory things, you will, of course, rely upon the documents to be very genuine and to be very correct. In case of doubts about the reliability of the information or certain indicators of the possible fraud, then auditor should investigate further and determine what modifications or the additions to the audit procedures are necessary to resolve the matter. So which can also consider the past experience of the honesty or the integrity of the management and TCWG. We should also take care that auditor must obtain persuasive evidences, not less than persuasive, to obtain the reasonable assurance. Of course, it cannot be a conclusive evidence, as we have studied this previously, that auditor should must obtain persuasive evidence so as to obtain the reasonable assurance. So in which cases we are supposed to apply the professional skepticism is only significantly on the accounting estimates. Management may be biased in making certain estimates or the assumptions or the provisions. In certain provisions are not booked, maybe in certain cases the contingent liabilities are not shown in the notes to accounts. It might be the case that the estimates are overstated or the understated. So in significantly in these cases where the estimates are there, they are related party transactions, as an auditor we are supposed to be a little more skeptical and have a more questioning mind. So being alert during the audit for the information that may indicate previously undisclosed related party transactions done in the normal course of business, the business rationale must be evaluated, that why this transaction was executed, what was the actual rationale of making the related party transaction. So these particular things must be, and that must be as per the relevant sections of the Companies Act 2013, maybe at the arm's length price or what was the rationale to execute these transactions should be considered by the auditor and maintain the professional skepticism at that point of time. At certain compliances of the laws and regulations in place, auditors should maintain professional skepticism. Fundamentally, may be the case that client is into imports and exports, and there are certain cases that are ongoing, proceedings that are ongoing by the FEMA. So we must obtain the latest proceeding status, we must ask the latest proceeding status from the management, like what are the show cause notice, what was the reply done, if order has been passed by the RBI or not. So we must be skeptical about all these things. If order has been passed, whether appeal has been done or not. When we check the balance sheet, that there would be, let's say, certain pre-deposits in the appeals. So that particular, while checking that pre-deposit, you must have a question that we must obtain what was the order passed. We must obtain a copy of appeal so as to check whether the grounds or the facts of the appeal, what is the likelihood that are we going to get a favor in favor of the company from the appellate authority, or reversal the case may be. So at this point of time, we must maintain professional skepticism. Use of specialist, work of an expert. Using one of the standard on auditing says that while using the work of an expert, we must maintain professional skepticism. We must see the factors, that where to use the work of an expert, when to use, how to use, to what extent auditor should rely on the expert valuations or the expert advice. For example, in example given by me, the litigation case, the external lawyer advice or the opinion can be taken by the auditor so as to probably see that how much percentage is there to win the case or lose the case. So on that particular basis, whether company has shown the contingent liability, if the probability is, let's say, more than 51%, then whether provisioning has been booked or not. So all these things should be considered by the auditor while maintaining professional skepticism and use of the special work by the auditor. Then impairment calculations, fair value measurement, going concern assessment, again, the auditor should be skeptical about. Then comes the professional judgment. I already explained professional judgment is the practical and the application of the relevant training, knowledge, and experience within the context provided by the auditing and the accounting ethical standards in making the informed decisions about the courses of action that are appropriate in the circumstance of the audit engagement. So basically, audit professional skepticism is the skill, is the particularly level of skill, but judgment is the application of that relevant skill, training, knowledge, and experience. So professional skepticism is applied in making judgments. It involves making decisions and finally concluding on a particular matter. So professional judgment requires that while demonstrating skepticism, we must document it. Teams should clearly document the objectives, application of the knowledge, alternative courses adopted, alternative procedures done, in-depth evaluation of the information gathered, and conclusion to justify and corroborate the soundness of the professional judgment made. So we have to document this well. As per SA 230, it is utmost important that we must document all these things. So in addition to maintaining professional skepticism, auditor is also supposed to document it so as to prove that we have maintained sufficient and appropriate audit evidences in case any regulatory authority asks the same. Then while maintaining the professional skepticism, there are three things that are very much important. Number one, technical knowledge. Auditor must have an understanding of the applicable accounting standards and the auditing standards, and as well as the sections of the Companies Act and the relevant FRF, Financial Reporting Framework. In case it's a banking company, then Banking Act, Insurance Act, or whatever may be the case. So technical knowledge is very important to have the knowledge of accounting and auditing standard is of utmost important. Then any other specialized skill or knowledge that are relevant to a particular judgment comes under the technical knowledge part. Then appropriate mindset, that implies an attitude of professional skepticism, an attitude that is a questioning attitude or a thoughtful attitude, attitude which actually evaluates and critically assesses the appropriateness and the sufficiency of the audit evidence. So all these things, should be critically evaluated by the auditor. It should be in the mindset of the auditor. Then this was the first part is the technical knowledge. The second part is the mindset, the questioning mindset, and third part is the the knowledge of the client's business. In fact, is the first and the foremost thing while doing the planning of the audit, that understanding of the entity and its environment. So understanding of the entity's business, its overall climate, the overall industry scenario, all these things should be considered by the auditors per se, and it should actually draw the outline while doing the planning, that in which industry the auditor operates should be categorically looked by the auditor while maintaining the professional skepticism. Now, the overarching common biases why the auditors generally fail to maintain the professional skepticism is that we must rely on the document. Sometimes we work by the mind, what management is saying verbally, or what the auditee is saying verbally, rather than when we check the document, the scenario is outrightly different, and we see that what we made a choice in our mind is document is showing totally contrast to it. So at that point of time, auditor should particularly think and see that audit, while doing audit, the professional skepticism is not a matter of choice. Is not a matter of choice and is to be verbally discussed, not like that, but it should be you should rely upon the information which is documented, not what is just communicated to us. Sometimes overconfidence and the availability comes into the challenge of the auditor. Sometimes we believe it is unnecessary to revisit the settled matters, and we sometimes fail to touch upon the important aspects, thinking that this thing is over, why we should touch them. So sometimes under we underestimate the judgment, we underestimate the reliance on the procedures or the documents being obtained by the auditee. Sometimes we a lot of options are available, but we are little reluctant to go for only one option. We fail to cross check the same thing through other means and ways. So this is something availability comes into picture, where the things are available, but auditor is reluctant to only rely on the one thing and goes ahead with the audit procedures. Then anchoring and the clinging is something that it has a fixed starting point for reasoning process, and being too reluctant to move far from that. While when we plan, while executing the audit, our planning may undergo a certain change. Our one sample has to be increased. See, let's say we came to a conclusion at the very starting while planning stages that we would let's say 10% sampling, but while doing the audit procedures, we came to a conclusion that no, we need to do extended procedures, because there are contradictory and in the corroboration of the evidences. So at that point of time, we must not have a rigid mindset. We would only do then, even then we would do 10% sampling. No, we require an open mind, and we should extend our procedures, while performing the audit procedures. Now I am discussing certain challenges in being skeptical by the auditor. See, sometimes what happens is client is very impatient. Client, is making a pressure on the auditors again and again to close the audit at earliest. So all those things should not impact the client, should not impact the auditors, procedures, or auditor should not do the procedures in hurry in case this is the challenge. A very clear, email or the correspondence should be made to the client that it is our duty to perform proper audit procedures, and what timeline audit will take, it will take basically, being client is impatient, it should not impact the audit procedures, and the being skeptical about the auditor procedures, and we should cut short the audit procedures and come to a conclusion very soon. So no such challenge should be accepted. Then multitasking, we tend to have so many things at the same time. Auditor fails to focus on a particular thing. Challenges in face-to-face interview, daily meetings are not possible. Sometimes, so many things are in loop, and it's not possible that every now and then we come and go for a face-to-face interview. But still, we should note down all the things, and which we can remove this operational challenges by just noting down all the points to be discussed with, let's say, operation team, accounts operation team, then points to be discussed with the CFO and team, and then points to be discussed with directors and TCW. We can make different notes at once, and go and have a face-to-face discussion per se. Then difficulty in understanding is one of the points. Sometimes we don't understand the business of the entity very clearly. At a result of that particular thing, the problems come. Lack of understanding, immaterial or the auditable data, reluctant to bother. This is the same thing I just gave an example in the previous slide. Sometimes we don't bother to obtain the additional evidences. We say this is one is okay. We won't go beyond one evidence. Even we found something questioning, or we found something very alertive condition, even then we are reluctant to bother. Is something challenge in being skeptical. No issues last year, results in delay, reluctant to offend, are all the factors and the challenges that that are there in being the skepticism, being maintenance of the professional skepticism by the auditor. Exceed the time budget. Time is very crucial in the audit completion. Many times time is exceeded in one audit, and we have to obtain the other audits as well. So this in today's era, we are not supposed to be in the very much hurry. If one assignment has exceeded its time, then it should not be done at the cost of other audit very soon. Not like that, but eventually the proper timing should be given to each of the audit assignments. Then certain slides about the how can we overcome the challenges. No, we should have proper knowledge of the client. We should maintain proper homework while doing anything, checking of the audit assertions. For example, I would say long outstanding capital projects. So, in case projects are lying in capital work in progress, or there certain capital advances, then we should be prepared to ask questions. We should even pre-frame the questions while before the actual meeting happens. So, uh, in case of capital projects, in case of disbursement of the advances, this particular thing, we should question the disbursement of the huge capital advances by the company during the times of liquidity arises. So all these things should be carried by so as to overcome the challenges that are being faced by the auditors. Frequent discussions, the more we discuss, the more we'll have a clarity on the different points altogether. Then casual discussions can also happen with the employees of the company, uh, financial condition, the new initiatives given to the team. All these things should be escalations of the senior. We can see the HR hierarchy also. Senior team members. We should obtain the management representations, lawyer confirmation on contingent liability. I have already covered this. Then how can we overcome the challenges? See, for challenging situations of obtaining information, the client, we should consider having one more than one engagement partner involved in the discussion, because sometimes the engagement partner alone goes and auditor is influenced, and auditor is uh, you know uh, is uh, informed by the different directors. So in case there is something material thing, so more than one engagement partner may be involved in the discussion. Then assumptions should be questioned. For example, in the COVID time, auditors should question the ability of the company to raise funds to meet the future demand. Trust but verify. Audit team can trust the information given by the client, but he should also verify the same from the confirmations or the documents obtained. And the audit, balances information given by the client should be compared with the information obtained by the auditor. And if the both information are in corroboration, are in collaboration, are matching, then only auditor can rely upon the financial statement. Then external confirmation challenge can also be overcome by this particular thing. Then closed locations, then probing questions. Audit team should ask the client more probing and open-ended questions. For example, instead of asking, did you capitalize project A and B, which is very much evident from the financial statement, you should ask the status of the projects. That what is the status of the capital work in progress per se. How did you manage the business inventory during lockdowns is one of the things that can also be asked. How did we face the competitors during the same period is something that can also be probing questions while maintaining the professional skepticism. Then bank confirmations, interest certificates, debtors, loan recoveries are certain things that auditors. Then management representations are you know uh, should be checked, particularly how much to rely upon these particular things should also be looked into picture. So all these things matter the most. Certain explanations, certain management representations, in case these are not given properly by the management, so it must be considered properly. That planning and timing auditor should not compromise with the time audit quality. It may be possible that certain days may be extended, but nevertheless, auditor should compromise on the quality part. Monitoring of the work of the junior team members should not review senior person, senior partner, or the senior director. So proper hierarchy must be followed by the engagement partner. Sometimes what happens is, in most of the in some of the cases, it is seen that whatever work is done by the junior team, auditor or the engagement partner signs on that basis. Even the work of the audit team is not reviewed at all, is not monitored at all. So, having said that, considering that particular thing, this is something that auditor should consider, that no, if I'm going to rely upon something, that work should be reviewed by a senior person. That way we can overcome the challenge of professional skepticism. Then knowledge update, auditor should have proper technical knowledge and skill on a enhanced skill on a regular basis. Then unpredictability, surprise visits, physical verifications, and confirmations that auditor should consider while doing the audit. Sometimes it should go to the auditor as a surprise visit, not intimating well in advance for the physical verification of the stock, for example. So all cash count, all these things should be done randomly by the auditor. So it can overcome the challenges, the inherent limitations in the audit, the particular documents we should maintain, so as to know that that we have exercised proper due diligence, we have exercised professional judgment as a result of professional skepticism. Then comes into picture the very important part is fraud and professional skepticism. So SA 240, which specifies auditor responsibility relating to fraud in audit of financial report, places special emphasis on the professional skepticism and requires the audit to investigate further in case audit has the reason to believe that this particular document may not be authentic or it may have been modified. So you read this, please, all the viewers are requested to read this particular para. Once you read this particular para, this is very important para. I request all the members to please read this. SA 240, you read this paragraph, please. So, this para specifically states that maintaining professional skepticism in an audit, it requires an ongoing questioning whether the information and the audit evidence obtained suggest a material misstatement due to fraud, whether this is existing or not, and also consider reliability that information to be used in audit evidence and control over its preparation and maintenance wherever relevant. So it says that professional skepticism has to be maintained extra when the auditor identifies a material misstatement which may go into fraud. So SA 240 casts responsibility on the auditor to make presumptions about the risk of fraud, about the risk of material misstatement, about to specify procedures that are required to be performed. For example, if the assumption is that there are risk of fraud in the revenue recognition, then various other things should also be addressed. Uh, Certain more procedures should be done in review of the accounting estimate for biasness. It should be checked properly whether the management has properly, provisioned the accounting estimates or not. And at the I had said to you all that in starting itself, not only we are supposed to exercise it in our mind state as an attitude, but at the time we should document the corroboration of the audit related matters and challenges, and too often we should maintain sufficient working papers and notes. In case we performed alternative procedures, we should maintain notes on that alternative procedures. So auditors in turn should demonstrate the value of the audit, whether they have maintained professional skepticism or not. And of course, effective documentation should be maintained for audit procedures, for document discussion, for identification of risk and responses, for assumptions, for going concern, for corroboration of the responses obtained. At the last slide is professional skepticism and auditing going forward. See, professional skepticism nowadays is not limited to the auditors, but it also falls upon the management, audit committee, board of directors, and company should impartially be asking themselves, are there any alternative accounting treatments that we have not considered? It, professional skepticism falls upon each and everyone, including management. Even you see, in nowadays, professional skepticism best example is the artificial intelligence. If you see, while scrutiny assessment of the income tax, there the artificial intelligence is doing certain professional skepticism, certain red flags in the transactions, that as per the desired or the as per the preset formula, this should have been done. But while actually when income tax assessee submitted the return, it found comparative to that standard things. Maybe cash was deposited beyond a specified limit in cash. Maybe cash was deposited higher of the specified limits by the authority. So all these things are, creating a red flag or the red alert. So professional skepticism nowadays is not exercised by the auditor alone, but management should also ask certain questions. Are we doing some assumptions okay? Are we making a going consumption okay? Because the primary responsibility of the preparation of the financial statement is, of course, of the management. See, so we must use these key drivers into fostering conditions, then consistent understanding of the nature of skepticism. And in current economic scenario and world of changing technology, it is more important that not ever auditor, we not only apply the professional skepticism, but also demonstrate the same in our behavior, in our document, in our mindset, in our attitude. So this is something going forward, the professional skepticism is going to happen. Lot of softwares auditor must use to red flag the transactions. Like in GST department also, GST is having certain preset criteria. If ITC, let's say, availed is more than 2B, then system will mark a red flag, and further proceedings or the adjudication would happen. So similarly, that is nothing but professional skepticism, a questioning mind. a notice is going to be raised that why this happened. Then when you respond to that particular notice, or either the department concludes the proceedings or department raises the demand. In either of the case, something can happen. So in that particular way, that professional skepticism is being maintained by the artificial intelligence. So in my opinion, before I before I jump into audit expectation gap, my final opinion for the professional skepticism topic is that auditors are supposed to use the technology. Auditors are supposed to use the different audit softwares. Auditors should be skeptical about lot of assertions that are going hand in hand, uh, and ask a lot of questions in writing uh, from the organizational hierarchy. If we case we're not satisfied with the junior team, then we are supposed to escalate the matters to the senior team. Then AI is at its peak. Now a time we have a lot of softwares available in the market for doing audit. Uh, then we cannot take an excuse that this was not our case or something like that. This time you should ask each and everything, and you should maintain professional skepticism as an auditor while planning and performing the audit. And SS 200 also talks about this. So, uh, before we move into audit expectation gap, are there any questions that we can take up in between the session, or the questions will be taken at the end of the session? I think questions will eventually happen at the end of the session. So now I start with the audit expectation gap. In this particular slide, I will cover that what is audit expectation gap, what is expected by the users, or I would say the user's expectation, and then what is the auditor's report, what are the gaps in the audit, what has been done to fill the gap so far, and what can be done further. All these things we are going to discuss in the presentation going forward in the session of audit expectation gap. So what is basically the audit expectation gap? Just give me a minute. So, why the audit expectation gap has come into picture? There are a lot of corporate failures and the scandals, which is has been the warning signals basically. Uh, Corporate failures without warning signals and scandal across the globe has called for the question for the roles and responsibility of the auditors in relation to the going concern and the fraud of the audit of financial statement. Auditors have claimed that they have expressed their opinion on the financial statement after duly complying with all the accounting and auditing standards. So auditors are saying that they have complied all the things. They have complied with all the accounting standards, and they have complied with all the auditing standards. And while users are saying that auditors have not performing their duties in such a way that is supposed to do. So in that particular case, there is a performance gap that has come into the picture. So sorry, expectation gap. So expectation gap is something that what is expected from the auditor, and in reality what auditor is doing. So there comes a expectation gap. So uh, expectation gap is not a relatively new phenomena. It's a very old phenomena, and it further talks about that the difference between the level of expected performance vis-a-vis what is expected from the auditors by the users is something that the audit expectation gap. The difference between the expected from the auditing profession and what profession actually provides. Auditor says it has complied with the auditing accounting standard, while user says this was required, this thing was required from the auditor. So expectation gap has come. The difference between what the general public think auditors do and what the general public would like auditors to do is something that should be a gap should be bridged, a gap should be met out. So this thing should be particularly filled in. So we would see further that how this expectation gap can be dealt with. It can be dealt with maybe with the knowledge, awareness. It can be dealt with clearly specifying the responsibility of the management and the responsibility of the auditor, which is being done in the revised auditing standards, SS 700 series. So this is what is happening in all those things. So who are the users of the audit financial statement? They are the investors, lenders, suppliers, employees, regulator, revenue authorities, and other stakeholders. So see expectation of the users from the audit of general purpose financial statement is that auditors have unique advantage in having the right to see everything that goes in company and to assess whether the trust is deserved or not. So, and public sees audit as a solution to the unacceptable corporate behavior and making sure that financial give a holistic, true and fair view and ensuring that fraud is addressed and appropriate level of the professional skepticism are maintained. So you see in these lines, users of the financial statements are expecting from us that fraud should be addressed in entirety. Even how that is possible. So expectation of the users from the audit of financial statement is different. They are of the view that fraud is addressed. So in auditor's report, we see that this particular thing that structure of the auditor's report has been designed and revised in such a way that the opinion, on the basis of the opinion, the formation on which we based our opinion, that there is an unmodified opinion or the modified opinion. That basis is clearly stated in the auditor's report. And then management responsibility, auditor responsibility, all these things are the key components of the audit report in the SS standard series. Then on the report on the legal and regulatory requirements, then in the opinion paragraph, these lines are used to the best of our explanation and information given to us. The financial statement give true and fair view in the manner so required or with the accounting principles generally accepted in India. So you see that in all the auditor's report content, nowhere it is mentioned that auditor will not disclose its responsibility, while auditor is showing his responsibilities in a very specific way. So the content of audit report, preparation of financial statement, it is clearly written that it is the management responsibility. The maintenance of adequate accounting records, asset safeguard is the responsibility of the management. Preventing and detecting the frauds and irregularities in the audit is the responsibility of the management. Making proper reasonable estimates is the responsibility of the management. Having proper internal controls in place is the responsibility of the management. Assessing companies' ability to continue as an going concern is the responsibility of the management. And we clearly show it in the responsibility of the management paragraph. And what are the auditor's responsibility? That the financial statement are free from material misstatement to obtain a reasonable assurance and examination on the test basis. Test basis. That to clearly write in the auditor's report that we have examined the books of account on test basis, not 100% basis. And it cannot be expected from the auditor to do 100% checking, not at all possible. An audit conducted in accordance with the specified standards as prescribed under Section 143(10) of the Companies Act 2013. So, Asset 200 also talks about that reasonable assurance is not absolute level of assurance because there are inherent limitations of the audit, and as a result of which auditor opinion is always persuasive. Rather, it is conclusive. It is not conclusive. Rather, it is persuasive. Then, auditor, it is clearly written that auditor is not expected to reduce risk to zero and cannot therefore obtain absolute assurance. How it is possible for the auditor? He is not giving any certificate in writing that risk reduced is zero. No, it is not like that. So Asset 200 specifically talks about the inherent limitations of an audit. Then audit expectation gap allegations. So in hiding behind the need only to confirm, manage, verify, many auditors have failed to grasp the opportunity to make the reports more informative and more, it has to be more clearly defined. So we need to be clear, more very good in drafting. So many of the companies or auditors do take this opportunity in private, communicating well beyond the narrow confines of the auditing standard when we are reporting to the audit committees, but not to the shareholders and other stakeholders. Then redefining audit, it includes the financial audit, proprietary audit, and the performance audit. These kind of audits is going beyond the statutory audit, and these audits are directed towards examining the propriety of the executive action beyond the compliance viewpoint. For example, if there is a company A and company A is a Section 8 company, and Section 8 company has put in place the regulations and SOP that for any expenditure beyond 1 lakh, the president approval or together with the secretary approval has to be obtained. And we come across a particular expenditure of, let's say, 2 lakhs, where it is clearly not done with the prior approval of the president and secretary. So this would come under the proprietary audit, going beyond the formality of the expenditure, but bringing to notice the cases of waste, the losses, the extra vagant expenditure, which otherwise should not have been done. So why the approval system is there? Because so as to control the entity directors, to control the powers, and the revenue could be utilized properly. So these kind of audits come into play. Proprietary audit, performance audit talks about the two questions: are things being done in the right way, or are right things being done? Number two, performance audit is an independent examination of the extent to which an organization or the program or the scheme operates economically, efficiently, and effectively. So, whether the operations of the company has gone in an economic way, uh, in an effective way, or in efficient way or not, this thing are proper, particularly checked in the performance audit. Then we did the financial audit, we always do. Propriety I have covered, performance audit I have covered. Now I will talk about the why there is an expectation gap in the audit. So the concept of expectation gap is further broken down in a May 2019 publication by ACCA, wherein it deals with three major issues. Number one is the knowledge gap. Number two is the performance gap, and number three is the evolution gap. So knowledge gap specifically specifies that the difference between the what public thinks auditors do and what auditors actually do is the knowledge gap. So that knowledge gap can be maybe bridged up by the auditor by actually uh, creating an awareness, proper mentioning in the auditor's report in the SS also series that this is our responsibility and this is the responsibility of the auditor, and this is what we generally do. So this recognizes that the public may misunderstand the role of auditors and the requirement of auditing standards. Then comes into play the performance gap, where auditors do not do with what auditing standards clearly specify. So sometimes standards on auditing are not much clear on their requirements, or auditor may find it difficult to understand and apply a particular auditing standard and its applicability, and there comes a gap in the performance because auditing standards require something different, and auditor is doing something different, is not fulfilling the responsibility and the requirement of the auditing standard per se. So that way performance gap can also arise. Now the last gap is the evolution gap, where the areas of the audit where there is a need for evolution, taking into consideration the general public demand, technological advances, and how the overall audit processes can be enhanced to add more value. So this is something, the new generation gap, or the gap which arises due to the reason that auditors are even doing nowadays. It is doing things on a let's say manually basis. It is not accepting and taking care of the AI technology support and collaboration. So every auditor while doing auditing must take a responsibility that it will do its audit on the basis of certain technological advances. Otherwise, if we don't take the support of the technology guys, then eventually our time is going to be more. Our audit is going to be little uh, difficult and different. All these things will happen in the evaluation gap. Then I will leave this. Yeah. Then in one of the entity which says this, in our view, there is an overlap between the knowledge and the evaluation gap in terms of financial statement users' expectation of the auditors. So this entity, this particular projected, firm also specifies that there is an overlap between the knowledge and evaluation gap. This has not talked about the performance gap. You see, this entity only talks about the evaluation and knowledge gap. This does not talks about the performance gap. So different entities at the globe have identified different gaps in the due to which auditor failed to exercise the due diligence or the professional skepticism. So one of the entity specifies that different stakeholders may have different views so as to how they would wish audit to evolve and the level of assurance they want to audit to provide. While audit inspections and investigations into the corporate failures and major frauds have revealed that audit performance failures and inconsistency of application, there is no evidence of general performance failures in all audit. So it is categorically saying that we have checked lot of audit reports, but specifically in any of the report, we found that we came to an opinion that there is no evidence of general performance failure on all the audits, while it was a kind of specifically designed fraud that otherwise if an auditor would do, that would not be caught by the auditor. So next we read this line. So it says that we would not suggest that global perspective that main cause is the expectation gap. In some of the reports, they agree that some users may misunderstand the role of auditors and requirement of standard on auditing. But in addition, there can be a lack of understanding that management is responsible primarily for the prevention and detection of fraud. See, they are saying that auditor can have this nuisance in the back of the mind that lack of understanding can be on the part of user, that TCWG is the first person who is responsible for prevention and detection of fraud, because they implement internal controls, they implement SOPs to prevent and detect the fraud of financial statement. So maybe the reason that users do not know about this particular responsibility, and they are being misguided basically. So in all these cases, this might be the main reason for the audit expectation gap. Then one of the entities specifically said that knowledge gap is the gap which is actually coming into problem, due to which this audit expectation gap is increasing. And another one is the knowledge gap or the evolution gap. Basically, evolution gap is auditor to be equipped with the with latest technologies and implementing systems in his auditing firm so as to properly do the audit in a fast way, focus on the critical items, and then doing leisure scrutiny then asking for the queries that requires professional skepticism, and due to which there is a fraud of financial, there are chances of fraud of financial misstatements. So all these things should also be considered into mind. Then again, there is clearly an increasing expectation among stakeholders for a higher level of assurance on the absence of material misstatement due to fraud that has been historically proved and accepted in many corporates. The going concern assumption is not being taken in a right way. In our view, this does not reflect on the adequacy of the auditing standard on going concern, but on more of the audit procedure addressing the risk of fraud. So, the Business, Energy and Industrial Strategy Committee of the UK Parliament has said very seriously So I request everyone to please look at this, that the particular committee says that we were both surprised and disappointed to hear the view from the audit firms that fraud is difficult to detect and public should not expect the auditors to find it. We do not accept the attempts of the auditors to underplay the role or the scope of the audit, nor to implicitly blame the public for failing to understand the purpose of the audit. Rather, firms should focus on the poor quality of the audit and how they are falling short of the audits which are well within the framework. So it is saying that firms should not bother about, like, public is expecting more from the auditors to detect frauds, or auditors should not bother about that auditors are failing to understand about the responsibility of the management, but auditors should categorically focus on their audit quality, on the working papers being maintained, on the planning and performance of audit. So all these things auditor should work on himself. The kind of skill, the tactics, the knowledge of Ind AS, the knowledge of Companies Act, all these things should be considered by the auditors while auditing within the current framework. But still, what we feel that statute is taking lot of actions to bridge the expectation gap. So in recent time, we have seen that there are different requirements, additions, amendments that has happened, which requires more and more reporting. So why all these things have happened? Because so as to increase the transparency and to build a faith among the users of the financial statement and various stakeholders. There have been amendments in the Companies Act in section 143. There have been amendments in the SEBI list of disclosure requirement 2015 in regulation 30. There has been change in regulation 30 financial results after 1/4/18. Due to these questions of professional skepticism and audit expectation gap, these standards have been revised, and a very new standard 701 has been introduced. What was the need to introduce this SA 701 key audit matter paragraph? What was the need to introduce this particular new standard, and what was the need to revise SA 705 706? The only reason for these revisions was to enhance the transparency and the reporting among users of the financial statement, so as to bridge the gap between the expectations of the users and what actually auditors do. Two, lot of amendments have also come. Reasons for opinion, SA 570 has been revised, which talks about the going concern. Then responsibility of the management and the auditors is also listed separately. Then others, legal and regulatory requirements comes into picture, which has to be mandatorily reported by the auditor. Then additional reporting under Caro, as you all have seen that in Caro, the title deeds, even the title deeds of immovable properties, if are these properties held in the name of the company or not, that has to be specifically commented upon by the auditor. So previously, some of the auditors were not maintaining professional skepticism. They were not having these kind of questions in their mind. But categorically, the CARO has been amended, and these provisions have incorporated management, so that auditor may look into this titles, may obtain title deeds and check whether the registry and the ownership is in the name of the company or not. If the same is not in the name of the company, then accordingly deal with the financial statement and properly disclose the impact of the same in the its final auditor's report. Then in respect of loans and advances, guarantees, whether the provisions of 185, 186 have been complied with or not. So there is high interlinking of these recent amendments vis-a-vis professional skepticism and vis-a-vis to bridge the audit expectation gap. So at this point of time, I am relating that how this gap is being bridged. I am communicating to you. So learned members may please appreciate this additional reporting under Caro, rather being frustrated about like why so many things are being asked for the reporting. It is taking much time to check all these things. But believe me, trust my words, all these things are coming to the rescue of the auditor, saving the skin of the auditor. Nevertheless, these additional reporting under Caro on the frauds, have you noticed or not? Agar hai, to you need to indicate that. So particularly this, reportings are saving the auditor. At the same time, bringing a question in the mind of auditor. Auditor, have you checked this? Have you checked that whether any fraud has happened in the company, or have you noticed any such thing? If not, then it's okay. Market has no. If yes, the nature, amount involved, the extent of involvement of the directors and the related party, all these things have to disclose. So then related party compliance has also been incorporated in the recent amendments, whether related parties are in compliance with the section 177 and 188 of the Companies Act 2013 or not, have been properly disclosed in the financial statement or not. So all these things are being asked to report under the recent amendments in the CARO. Then non-cash transactions with the director of the company it's holding, all these things has to be reported. Then enhanced reporting also comes into play on the ongoing concern, frauds, bankers, specific regulators, then the short-term funds which are used for the long-term uses. Now you see, I was saying in the very starting of the session that auditor should keep an eye that advance was made to the supplier, but it is not getting materialized during the year. So this thing has been incorporated in the enhanced reporting under CARO 2020, that auditor, you report on this particular thing, that short-term funds used for long-term uses. So this is an eye-opener thing for the stakeholders, that how the company is using the funding of the creditors, or maybe the for long-term uses. So cash losses, material uncertainty, companies not paying its dues. For example, GST payable is outstanding from, let's say, more than GST payable is outstanding for, let's say, more than 1 year, or for example, TDS payable is more than 1 year, or certain demand is not being paid by the company, even the CC limit interest is overdue. So if these things are existing, so what is the material uncertainty that company is unable to meet its financial obligations on the balance sheet date? And what is the alternative? So this particular thing may cast companies, going concern assumption, because if company is not able to meet its current future obligations, current liabilities, it means the operations are not covering the sufficient revenue into the company to meet its current obligations. So all these things, auditors should consider and maintain professional skepticism, and this enhanced reporting have actually bridged the gap between what is expected from the auditor and what auditors are actually doing. Fraud ke liye lot of things are there. Revaluation of the PPE, registered valuer, evergreening of loans. Loans and advances which are repayable on demand, having internal audit system, reporting of fraud, addressing whistleblower. Then comes the coverage and procedure of the physical, how inventory is being physically verified. Working capital limit के ऊपर भी बहुत सारी requirements have come. Even you need to check that, I am remembering that one of the condition is this, whether the stock statement being submitted to the bank are in reconciliation with the books of accounts, or if not, then you have to give the reconciliation thereof. So you see the reporting has enhanced to certain extent. Then raising loans in the names of subsidiaries, joint ventures, all these things are bridging the gap for the auditor. Then proceedings under the Benami transactions. Are there any Benami properties? Are there any non-cash transactions with the directors? Are there any surrender being made by the company before the tax authorities under the amnesty schemes or Vivad se Vishwas scheme? Has company entered into such schemes? So we are supposed to be little skeptical about all these things. We are supposed to be little skeptical about the uh, should check the income tax logins, whether under logins any proceedings are going on or not. In GST we are supposed to see the additional notices and orders. In stat tribunal website we may check the current status of the cases if anything is in tribunal. So like this, as an auditor, in case we find number of litigations in the company's financial books of accounts, so we may go beyond the normal audit procedures and go beyond the normal procedure and should do certain extended procedures. It might be possible that company is maybe in future a lot of demand by the government revenue department may be casted upon the company, and company, it may be difficult for the company to operate. So again, audit expectation gap has been in various cases. I would just leave the NAFRA cases because some of the cases are in maybe in appeal, but we are here to educate. We are here to redefine the audit and what is the way forward. We are in this kind of webinars. We are here to have a solution of the problem. What is the way forward for bridging this gap? What is the way forward for maintaining professional skepticism while doing audit? So, redefining audit gap, one of the NAFRA chairperson has specifically mentioned that there is a delivery gap. So, in addition to the performance gap, in addition to the expectation gap or the understanding gap, knowledge gap, delivery gap has also been pointed out on the by some of the person. So What is now required is there needs to be a fundamental shift in the definition, approach of auditors, and we should maintain proper documentation so as to verify and confirm the balances. Number two, sometimes we go beyond the information contained in the statement of director. If director is saying something and we are in the document is finding something else, then we are supposed to go the do the extended procedures. And with this change in mindset and appropriate structures and principles in place, combined with more, focused training and better user engagements, audit can serve a much more useful purpose. So I think that we have come to at the end of the session, and last concluding thoughts, I would say that whether it be the professional skepticism, whether it be the bridging the audit expectation gap, the auditor is expected to maintain three important things. Number one, auditor needs to uh, be having for technical knowledge, knowledge of Companies Act, knowledge of financial reporting framework, knowledge of auditing standards. So gone are the days when we do not used to read the standards on auditing. We used to do the audit just like that, but now at time it is a high time that we upgrade our knowledge and skills by learning lot of amendments in the accounting standards, Companies Act, auditing standards. We are supposed to learn day by day through these kind of webinars and a lot of seminars being organized by the regional councils as well. Number two, that auditors should have certain skepticism and must exercise professional judgment while doing any work. And that is an attitude of mind that auditor must exercise while doing any assignment. And that comes throughout the experience, that doesn't come over the night. But while doing anything or auditing task, you should be alert. You should not take anything casually, in simple words, to put forward. As an auditor, we're supposed to be little conscious about things that are really, really contradictory or is not corroborative with the other evidences. Number three, that obtaining understanding of the entity, its SOPs, its environment, its internal controls, very, very important. Planning and performing the audit, that was very, very important. Obtaining external confirmations, depending upon the positive or negative, depending on the internal controls, weak or strong, that depends on. But auditor must exercise all these things in today's era. Only then can the audit function be done in a very efficient way, effective way, and we would be able to justify the very important function entrusted upon us as the chartered accountant, as the member by the users of the financial statements. And throughout that will actually be maintained if we exercise all these skills, if we exercise all these things, keep in mind, and we exercise due diligence and do the audit in the format or standards prescribed by the Auditing Standard Board of India. So with these lines, I just end up my session here and open the session for the queries that may have in the chat box. So over to the organizing team of the AASB of the ICF.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir, I can hear you, sir.
Yeah, thank you so much, sir. I have received certain question. Sir, first question is this. Normally, statutory auditor are expected to look into the detailed financial matters, and internal auditor do specific areas, area-wise audit. For auditing duplication of the work, internal auditor may leave such kind of financial audit in its scope of work. In such case, whether internal auditor can be held responsible for such material misstatement?
So, having said that, there is a particular standard that relying upon the auditor's report. So in that particular standard on auditing, you must read that particular standard. It specifically mentions that it is upon stat auditor to determine the nature, timing, and extent to rely upon the internal auditor's report. But at the same time, it is also mentioned that uh, having internal auditor worked upon that area, it cannot be auditor cannot be relieved from its responsibility to check that area. Eventually, you need to first evaluate whether what is the competence of the internal auditor, in what context and for what purposes internal audit has been conducted. If you are confident that that internal audit expectations and the stat audit expectations are matching, then only can you rely upon and do certain sample checking and materially rely upon the internal audit report. But nevertheless, I would say you should blindly rely upon and held responsible for to the internal auditor. Not at all. Stat auditor will be held responsible because in that particular standard auditing, it specifies that it is upon the auditor to check that. You may take certain samples and check the transaction and check whether the internal auditor has given a report in entirety with that is compliant with your observations. If that is the case, of course you may rely on the same, but it cannot be blindly relied upon. So that is the
Yes, yes, sir. So why separate documentation is required for professional skepticism? Our audit working hours are audit working papers as per standards on auditing are not sufficient.
This is not something like on professional skepticism. You have to maintain additional documentation, but it is saying this thing that while doing any assertions, while maintaining any working papers, anything that comes to you that was in fact the questioning, in fact the condition of material misstatement, alarming situation, whether you are maintaining working paper of that alarming situation, did you do alternative procedures? Did you maintain working papers of that alternative procedures you performed? If you perform that in your working paper, then it is okay. You need not to have any additional working papers for professional skepticism. But eventually, in case you just did not maintain the working papers for the additional evidences or how you tackled the alarming situation, you must have evidence or working papers for that. So this is what the requirement of the documentation of skepticism. Not any additional requirement, but in the normal course of business, the working papers for the conditions which are alarming, basically.
Yes, sir. Sir, in audit, how far the engagement letter guides the audit performance, and if it has been broadly addressed in the course of the audit, will that be enough for us to prove that the audit has been done in accordance with the same, and expectation gap should be based only on the engagement letter?
See, only engagement letter cannot be held liable for, bridging the gap between the auditor's responsibility and the management's responsibility. So, of course, the scope of audit, engagement letter, all these things are very much relevant. But at the most, what matters the most, that how you planned your audit, how you performed your audit, whether you relied upon the internal controls, how much reliance was placed upon the internal controls, what auditor report you are giving, you are giving the clear opinion or you are giving a modified opinion. Uh, even if there was a material misstatement and you are giving a unmodified opinion, so that causes the auditor to have a more gap between what was expected and what was delivered. So not only the expected engagement letter is enough, but also other things are also relevant that way.
Yes, sir. Sir, one more question. Is it is in Caro 2020 and not 2016 regarding the title deeds?
Yes, it's in Caro 2020, but I have specifically mentioned that there are amendments have been made to the previous CARO. Of course, these are in the recent CARO. The only purpose is to note down was that there has been improvements in the reporting, frameworks and the reporting requirements by the authorities, so as to bridge the gap. So just was for that was only for reference purposes.
Yes, sir. Sir, if users of financial statement have expectations, is it not then assignment of the agreed upon procedure?
Can you repeat?
If users of financial statement expectations, is it not based on the assignment of agreed upon procedures?
See, it is of course based upon the agreed upon procedures in the engagement, and you would conduct your audit in accordance with that procedures only.
Yes, sir. Sir, second last question. In the peer review document, one has to mention how professional skepticism has been observed. What comments would be appropriate in that
So in peer
regarding
review,
the professional skepticism at the time of the peer review document?
so for example, if I'm a peer reviewer and I'm finding something in the audit which you as an auditor fail to find the particularly the kind of observation. So rather I would be more skeptical about, like, whether did you maintain professional skepticism about other items also. So I would also be skeptical as a peer review. So while doing any peer review, a peer reviewer was able to contradict your observations, or was able to have additional things done. So at the same time, you would be held responsible for not maintaining professional skepticism throughout the audit. There is no specific and no black and white thing that you can maintain professional skepticism or not. That is only done through the planning and performance of the audit, and alertness to the conditions that are coming through the execution of audit.
Yes, sir. Sir, considering the present scenario in India, whether the middle-size CA firms can force the management to follow the line as it has been between survival of the firm by having such firm or giving up the practical, since management generally desire always to be the protect both, but will make the auditor to follow their line, otherwise ask for the resignation.
Yes, to be very true, in case in the middle, whether be it a middle-sized firm or large-sized firm, the roles and responsibility of auditors remain intact. I would rather say that management, if forcing us, then of course we can give disclaimer or the resignation as an auditor, but nevertheless, this cannot be an excuse that we are the medium-sized firm and this is how it happens. It can be taken excuse like that. Laws and laws, regulations are regulations. We need to follow them to the toe, and we can't. Ignorance of law is of no excuse, basically. So we need to follow the procedures rigorously. Even if the management is forcing us, then our independence, of course, is being hurt, and we are unable to give an opinion. Then in that case, disclaimer or the resignation, as the case may be, opted by the auditor.
Yes, sir. I'm through with the questions, sir. You may also check your chat box as well as WhatsApp if there is any question. You may also check this WhatsApp as well as the chat box of the Zoom if there is any question directly sent to you or the chat box also.
In chat box, I'm not having any questions.
If there is any query, then you may please take up, sir.
So
Otherwise, yes,
I
sir.
have already covered in between that and given a disclaimer also that whatever NAFRA order I have referred to was only for the reference purposes. I have already given a disclaimer that the particular NAFRA order is already under the appeal adjudication. So these are not finalized, but to show you the importance of professional skepticism, I have just underlined a few lines. My purpose was not to hurt the auditors or to instill fear in anyone's mind, not at all. It was just for reference purposes, for education purposes. Of course, the matter is under adjudication, and it will be, decided by the appellate authority. So that's a only a disclaimer for that way, that was
Yes,
only
yes,
reference
yes,
purpose.
yes, yes. So now we come to an end. Thank you so much, sir, on behalf of AASB of ICI. Honorable Vice Chairman of Chandigarh branch is there. I hope Abhishek sir, you are there. Abhishek ji, Abhishek sir, you are there. Abhishek ji, you are there. Abhishek ji, you are there. Abhishek sir. I hope some connection is not there. Abhishek sir is there, but I hope there is some connection issue, I hope. Let me check once again. Let me check once again whether Abhishek sir is there or not. Abhishek sir is Abhishek ji, you are there. So I hope there is no connection between the maybe some issue. So I hope there is some connection issue. Abhishek sir, you are there for the formal vote of thanks. I hope there is some issue. So thank you so much, sir, once again on behalf of AASB of ICI for this wonderful deliberation and apprising all the members regarding the professional skepticism as well as the audit expectation gap. On behalf of AASB of ICI, we also extend the Chandigarh branch as well as the Honorable Chairman of the Chandigarh branch, C. Abhishek Chauhanji, for their valuable time as well as for co-hosting this webinar. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much, Shivaji, for your
Thank you so
expert
much, sir.
advice. Thank you,
so
sir.
much,
Thank you.
ASB. Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Namaste.